This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Chinese President Xi Jinping arrives in Myanmar for a two-day state visit. 14 killed in Mali attack on a Fulani village. And the U.S. reveals that 11 of their troops were injured when Iran missiles struck their bases in Baghdad. Hello and welcome to Africa Live. As always, great to have you with us. I'm Richard Nta live in Nairobi. And for those of you joining us from across the continent and around the globe, we thank you for joining us. Let's take a look at other stories making headlines this hour. In business, Egypt's central bank keeps key interest rates unchanged. And in sports, Tunisia's tennis federation targets further growth of the sport in coming years. Once again, welcome to Africa Live. We begin in the Myanmar capital, where the Chinese president has arrived for a state visit. During his two-day stay, Xi Jinping is scheduled to attend a series of events hosted by President U Win Mint and hold state talks with Councillor Aung San Suu Kyi. The Chinese president will also join Myanmar leaders in celebrations to mark the 70th anniversary of diplomatic relations between the sides, as well as a ceremony to launch their joint culture and tourism year. It's President Xi's maiden overseas trip this year and the first visit to Myanmar by a sitting Chinese president in 19 years. And there will be an official welcoming ceremony for President Xi Jinping held by Myanmar's President U Win Mint. Earlier, we spoke to our reporter Zhu Dan in Nay Pyi Taw. She told us what the media and officials there are saying about President Xi's state visit.
Here in the local newspaper, Global New Light of Myanmar has many pages covering President Xi Jinping's visit. And this is a signed article by Chinese President Xi Jinping. And also here, the think tank summit explores China-Myanmar relations, a new documentary TV series on Chinese history. It all shows that they are paying great attention to President Xi Jinping's visiting. And the people here are showing full support. The two sides have cooperated under the framework of the Belt and Road Initiative. The economic corridor scheme features a Y-shaped route from China's Yunnan province to Myanmar's Rakhine state, and also Yangon, with multiple projects initiated. Well, you know that people here used to get by without electricity. But with the help of the China-Myanmar oil and gas pipeline project, the villagers here now experience a better quality of life, as the natural gas is supplied daily from the starting station in Joppo County and then transferred to the local power station. Well, aside from benefiting from the use of electricity, well, young people here get better education and the jobs were created and the economy is expected to be further boosted. Well, all because of these projects. And earlier, I talked to some of the people here, and take a listen first.
Everyone is looking forward to Xi's visit, and this will help deepen the friendship between China and Myanmar to promote cooperation in more areas. Now, articles about China in the Myanmar media are growing, and people in Myanmar have known more about China and feel closer to the country.
The Belt and Road Initiative proposed by President Xi will boost the economic development of ASEAN nations. To implement cooperation under the Belt and Road Initiative will make China grow and also drive the development of its neighboring countries.
The local media also say China has been the largest trade partner of Myanmar, as well as the top investor in terms of accumulated foreign direct investment. Meanwhile, through the combination of culture and tourism, the two countries will further strengthen exchanges and cooperation in education, culture, tourism, and media, and also promote mutual understanding and friendship between the people here. So both sides are looking forward to the visit.
Each day, there are millions of stories. Each one can open new perspectives, new possibilities. Wherever you look, we are there to see, discover, explore. We put the pieces together to find what really matters to you, all around the world, all around the clock. Our reporters are at home across the globe. From our headquarters in Beijing and production centers in Washington, Nairobi, and London, China Global Television Network. Stories from across the globe, reaching people across the globe. CGTN. See the difference.
Well, in Mali, 14 people have been killed after an attack on a Fulani village. 2 other people have been wounded. Reports indicate that men on motorcycles wearing the distinctive clothing of traditional hunters attacked Siba village early Thursday morning. They are said to have fired at villagers with hunting rifles and set houses on fire. Other witnesses say that some villagers' throats were slit while they were asleep. Tensions between the Fulani and the traditional Dogon hunters have existed for some time. Islamist militants, on the other hand, launched an insurgency in the north part of the country in 2012. Conflict has since spread to the center of Mali, with hostilities often taking an ethnic dimension. Around 160 Fulani died in March last year in the Osa Ogosagu near the border with Burkina Faso, while in June, 75 Dogons were killed in various villages. Burkina Faso and Niger have also had to bear the brunt of attacks spilling over from Mali. There had been a pause in violence since August after the 2 warring groups agreed to a ceasefire. And to Libya now, where Libya's military commander Khalifa Haftar has expressed commitment to observe the existing ceasefire and a planned arms embargo. It is also said that Haftar could be attending the Berlin summit on Libya slated for this weekend. German Chancellor Angela Merkel has hailed Haftar's move as a step towards finding a lasting solution.
Libya's military commander Khalifa Haftar's commitment to ceasefire and the likelihood to attend talks in Berlin cannot be ignored. Just on Tuesday, he left Moscow without signing a power-sharing deal. Russia and Turkey had called for the talks, but failed to persuade him.
Unser Außenminister hat heute den General Haftar getroffen.
Our foreign minister met with General Haftar, and it is a good message that he is willing to keep to the ceasefire. That's the prerequisite. At the Libya conference, we must, above all, see that the weapons embargo is adhered to again, which is basically agreed by the UN, but unfortunately not kept to. So I believe this message is good news.
Glaube ich, ist sozusagen dieses Bekenntnis eine gute Nachricht.
German's Foreign Minister Heiko Maas flew to Haftar's base in eastern Libya to discuss the upcoming Berlin summit. The summit will bring together foreign powers and Libyan rebel camps. It's part of an attempt to try and end the war over Tripoli. Haftar is now in Greece for meetings with the Greek Foreign Minister and the Greek Prime Minister ahead of the Berlin conference on Libya set for Sunday. Libya has been divided between 2 rebel camps, the internationally recognized GNA government led by Faiz al-Serraj and the other in the east controlled by Haftar. It follows a power vacuum after Muammar Gaddafi was ousted in 2011. Chamhono, CGTN.
All right, let's go to South Sudan now, where a stalemate over the number of states and boundaries continues ahead of the formation of a unity government. South Africa's Deputy President David Mabuza proposed for an arbitration on the issue. The process could, however, take 90 days. South Sudan's Cabinet Affairs Minister Martin Elia Lomuro says the government has accepted the proposal. The government's opposition side is yet to react, though. The 2 sides have repeatedly failed to reach an agreement ahead of the 22nd of February's deadline to form a unity government. All right, let's get the latest on this from our correspondent Patrick Oyet, who is joining us live from Juba. Patrick, thanks for taking time out to speak to us here on Africa Live. Patrick, as of last evening, the 2 sides were confident they would form a unity government. by next month. But is there any reaction from Riek Machar's side on the proposal for arbitration on the number of states and boundaries? Patrick.
Yes, there is reaction. Actually, now we are told that the opposition group led by Riek Machar have accepted also the proposal by the Deputy President of South Africa, David Mabuza, and also the other political groups that are signatory to the agreement have accepted. After a long talk, the South Africa's Deputy President was scheduled to leave Juba yesterday. He could not leave. He had to leave this morning because they had a long meeting going past midnight local time here. So the other parties have accepted. Opposition leader led by Riek Machar have also accepted the proposal. However, now as we speak, the talks are still going on. The talks are now on the members of the committee, the arbitration committee, who would be in that committee. Other things like the terms of reference, and also how does this play out in regard to this current peace agreement. Where will they put this arbitration committee? So such details are the ones now that the parties are negotiating, and they have asked for a week. They want a week to be sure to complete this exercise and then come up with a way forward. So yes, in principle, all the parties now have accepted the proposal by South Africa.
All right, Patrick, let's leave it there for now. Thank you for that update and report. Thanks for keeping a close eye on that story. Patrick speaking to us live from Juba. Moving on, Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi and UAE's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Zayed have attended the opening ceremony of Egypt's newest military base. The Barnice military base is in the center of the Mediterranean Sea, which enhances Egypt's geographical reach in the region. It is a comprehensive naval, air force, and ground troop station quite close to the border with Sudan. Here is Adel Al-Maroui with more.
Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi has invited regional leaders and defense officials to witness a new military achievement. The Barnice military base, which Cairo says is the biggest of its kind in the Red Sea. Near the southern border with Sudan, the new base gives Egypt extended reach into Africa and the Gulf region.
To understand the significance of the Barnice base, we must go back 40 years ago, when President al-Sadat got from many big countries offers to establish a military base there. He refused foreign presence, but their demand to that location reflects the significance of the base in the middle of the Red Sea.
The massive ceremony organized, which included the biggest Air Force show in Egypt's history, reflect the importance of its addition to the country. Barnice military base has been constructed in only 1 year. It is built over 150,000 acres of land, providing all forms of military hardware maintenance and health care. It is built to be self-sustainable.
Having permanent Egyptian forces in that region saves a lot of mobilization time and costs. There are naval, air forces and ground troops there, which protect threats from terrorism, proxy wars, and more importantly, it protects the Egyptian territorial waters in the Red Sea, which in 2016, Egypt and Saudi Arabia had drawn. They extend to 130 kilometers in the Red Sea, and soon oil exploration missions will launch. All of that makes the base a great addition to Egypt.
More expansions are currently underway in this new facility. Soon it will include military naval ports of 1.2 kilometers length and 17 meters in depth to accommodate Egypt's latest addition of helicopter carriers and frigates.
Cairo insists that the military base is not to threaten any country in the region. It has been rather established to maintain security in the maritime trade route in the Red Sea. Barnice is the second military base President el-Sisi inaugurates since he took office. Adel Al-Maroui, CGTN, Cairo.
The U.S. military has admitted that 11 of its troops were treated for symptoms of concussion after an Iranian missile attack on a base in Iraq earlier this month. The statement comes after its initial claim that no service members were hurt. Iran fired over a dozen missiles at 2 bases housing U.S. troops in Iraq on January the 8th. It was in retaliation for the U.S. drone strike in Baghdad that killed top Iranian military commander Qasem Soleimani. At the time, U.S. President Donald Trump had tweeted, "All is well," and so far, so good. All right, time now for a short break. You are watching Africa Live. Let's find out what's coming up. Calls for government as UN says Nigeria has the second largest number of child brides in the world. And Ethiopia says 35,000 university students have left over fears of ethnic clashes in campuses.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Welcome back. In Ethiopia, 35,000 students are reported to have left universities to go back home following prolonged ethnic violence on campus. This was reported by the Ethiopian Minister for Science and Higher Education. Professor Hirat Wildemariam stated that 640 students, 40 lecturers, and 240 administrative employees had been arrested across the country. The ministry is now considering replacing the students in efforts to end the conflicts. Violence in the institutions have led to the temporary closure of 22 universities. The violence is concentrated in Amhara and Oromia regional states, as well as the eastern city of Dire Dawa. Well, moving on, our correspondent Coletta Wanjohi joins us live from Addis Ababa. Coletta, thank you for joining us here on Africa Live. Coletta, what more do we know about these ethnic clashes inside universities in Ethiopia?
Well, the revelation from the Ministry of Science has come after, a research they've done over the year, and they found out that the universities have now become a den of ethnicity politics, a den where they say now people are moving into the universities looking for people to train, especially political factions looking for students to train and hoping that their missions will be carried out through younger versions of the population who are the youth that are mainly in universities. So they have the government is saying that this is a crime that people must be brought to book. It has made arrests, and it hopes that by suspending some of these students and also expelling some of them and also bringing them before the courts of law, they'll be able to get down to this. And now the latest news we are having right now is that the government has said that all public universities must have cameras at least at the entrance of the universities to check out unauthorized personnel that are coming into the universities. So it is a situation that has gone up and probably reflects the kind of ethnicity violence that we are seeing in different parts of the country.
All right, Coletta, at one point, the government considered deploying security officers inside the campuses. Did these measures make any difference at all in dealing with the problem?
Not really, because if you look at the form of harassment that the students who have been targeted are getting, for example, some of them are mainly the first-year students that are joining universities. They have reported cases of being denied maybe access to cafes, being denied food, being denied access to dormitories, being harassed in private, and so these issues are being done beyond the eyes of the security forces that may have been put inside the universities. So this is something that is being done behind the scenes, and something that probably the security forces might not be able to see. So that's why the government is saying that a lot needs to be done, and now we are seeing some organizations coming up. For example, there is an organization that has come up going to different universities and trying to give them civic education and telling them that beyond just being political parties or supporting political parties, this should not be part of their university agenda.
All right. Coletta, if I understand this story correctly, these tensions are mainly being reported outside the capital, Addis. From your perspective, why is that?
Well, if you look at the regions that are affected, the Oromia region and the Amhara regions, like we said before, these are regions that have really seen heavy political conflict in the past 2 years or so. And within Addis Ababa, it's a metropolitan area where the universities have people of different religions, different ethnicity backgrounds. The whole modern lifestyle, if I would call that, within the city does not sees young people who are not really affected, who are not even, some of them are not even interested in the political outfits in the country at the moment. But within the regions, within the Oromia region, within within the Amhara regions. These are people who are really affected by that because the young people there see what is happening in terms of the internal conflict, and some of them are adapting that and taking that into the universities. So that's why Addis Ababa is a bit safe for now, because of the interest, because of the proximity in terms of the political figures that are going into, and also exposure has really helped the people in Addis Ababa to be at least safe.
All right, excellent reporting. Coletta Wanjohi, thank you for staying on top of that story for us. That's Coletta Wanjohi speaking to us live from Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. Moving on, the International Organization for Migration says it has this week assisted 700 South Sudanese refugees in Ethiopia with onward transportation to refugee camps in Asosa, western Ethiopia. Now, they were moved from a reception center in the Gambela in the southwestern part of the country, where they had been accommodated since July 2019. Coletta Wanjohi reports from Addis Ababa.
The UN Refugee Agency, UNHCR, says a significant number of refugees continues to arrive in Gambela, western Ethiopia, which sits at the border between South Sudan and Ethiopia. The region hosts over 400,000 South Sudan refugees since 2013, when the conflict in South Sudan began. The International Organization for Migration says severe food insecurity and renewed armed conflict is worsening the already dire humanitarian situation in South Sudan. However, the Gambela regional government has officially communicated that they will no longer accommodate more refugees. The refugees in the region are more than the local population. The region says all relocations will be to a camp in western Ethiopia established in April 2017. IOM says there has been an upsurge of arrivals with over 4,000 refugees, including unaccompanied or separated minors, arriving at Gambela, Ethiopia, South Sudan border for assistance since November 2019. Peace is yet to return to South Sudan. The warring factions have less than 50 days to honor an agreement to form a transitional government of national unity. However, there is concern from the international community that little progress has been made. Coletta Wanjohi, CGTN, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
A United Nations Children's Fund report says Nigeria has the second largest number of child brides in the world. Many young girls have had to flee their homes to avoid being forced into marriage, exposing them to a range of social, health, and physical dangers. Experts are now calling on the government to bring an end to this trend. Our correspondent, Philly Haza, tells us more.
It's an after-school tailoring exercise for 13-year-old Success Hanidu. She says her dreams of getting an education and becoming a fashion designer were threatened last year when she almost became a child bride.
When my father died, my uncle said he won't be able to sponsor me to school again. So he wanted to marry me off to one man. But with the help of my mom and an NGO, I was rescued.
In Nigeria, many girls around the ages of 9 to 15 are married off to older men against their will.
Although Success may have escaped being married off at a young age, there are over 23 million other young girls who are currently child brides across Nigeria. That's according to UNICEF.
The practice is rampant among communities in northern Nigeria as a result of their religious beliefs, poverty, and cultural practices. Activist Mabel Onwumele says it hinders their education, limits the opportunities for career advancement, and poses serious health challenges for their underdeveloped bodies.
When a girl gets married off at an early age, what it does to the girl is, number one, it disempowers the girl. It makes the girl powerless. She cannot continue with her education. One, she does not have a say on who she is. Her entire womanhood is taken away from her. It's stolen. Let me not say stolen from her. She cannot rub minds again with her peer groups.
I also believe that because
Nigerian lawmakers have debated on marriage customs for decades, but the country's constitution protects religious freedom that says a girl's readiness for marriage cannot be determined by her age. Experts say the government needs to do more to review its laws and put an end to underage marriages in Nigeria.
The government needs to formulate policies and laws that stipulates when an individual should get married. For example, the Child Rights Act of 2003 should be domesticated in the 36 states of Nigeria, which says that anyone could get married at so age, at age 18.
For Nigeria's Child Rights Act to become effective, it will need all 36 states of the Federation to ratify it. At the moment, 11 states have yet to agree. Until that happens, girls like Success may remain at risk of losing their childhood to early marriage. Phil Ihaza, CGTN, Abuja.
Mozambique's President Philippine Nyusi met with the special envoy of Chinese President Xi Jinping, who is also the vice chairman of the Standing Committee of the National People's Congress. Kai Defang congratulated President Nyusi on his re-election on behalf of President Xi Jinping. He said that China and Mozambique continue to enjoy good relations and hopes for future partnerships. The two countries agreed to continue working together to consolidate political ties and cooperation. Also discussed was the deepening of ties in security, economic, and trade fields to promote a more strategic relationship. Kai said this while attending the inauguration ceremony of President Nyusi's last term in office in Maputo. You're watching Africa Live on CGTN. We'll see you on the other side of the break with more business news. Let's have a look at the headlines. Egypt's central bank keeps key interest rates unchanged. And South Africa's Treasury struggles to find the $140 million to rescue the national carrier.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and global business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues from taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Welcome back. Egypt's central bank has left lending rates unchanged at 12.25%. This is despite expectations that the Monetary Policy Committee will cut the rates. The bank cited the annual headline urban inflation that remained at 7.1% in December 2019 compared to 3.6% in November 2019. Now, during the second quarter of the 2019, available data showed that private domestic demand outpaced net exports as the main driver of economic activity. The CBE asserted that the MPC closely monitors all economic developments and will not hesitate to resume its easing cycle subject to further moderation of inflationary pressures. The Reserve Bank cut rates by a combined 350 basis points during the last three consecutive meetings and 100 basis points in February 2019. Well, time is running out for SAA. This as National Treasury struggles to find the $140 million needed to keep the national carrier in the blank and operational. That money is due before the end of January. Tito Mboweni, the country's finance minister, speaking at a briefing session in Johannesburg, confirmed that Eskom would be assisted but wouldn't be drawn on his position on SAA.
The situation at SAA remains critical, with National Treasury officials in meetings with airline management, the business rescue practitioner and the banks earlier in the week. This in an attempt to find that additional funding.
Let's keep our fingers crossed. I suspect I'll be on Swiss International when I go to Zurich on Sunday. You can make whatever conclusion from that.
As the country edges closer to the national budget speech at the end of February, Mboweni is concerned about several other challenges facing the fiscus. Amongst them are some of the state-owned entities and their viability.
Those state-owned enterprises which function very well will require our support, because they should be able to demonstrate that they have a revenue stream which is sustainable and can sustain the business. But those which don't have a revenue stream that can sustain the business must ask themselves about their existence.
Mboweni says another threat to the fiscal position is wastage and corruption. He didn't pull any punches.
Wherever there are large projects, watch out for corruption. Huge amounts of money, thieves, rats and mice thrive. So we must be vigilant about it. Otherwise, this poses a huge threat to our fiscal position.
As South Africa enters that critical period just before the national budget, and then we're going to hear from the last remaining ratings agency, there's some issues that are occupying the finance minister's mind, and they're going to be dealt with. I'm Angelo Coppola for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Well, Business Unity South Africa has hosted its second Business Economic Indaba in Sandton, Johannesburg. During the meeting, the business lobby urged President Cyril Ramaphosa to grab the bull by the horns and take decisive action in dealing with the challenges facing the economy. CGTN's Ulysses Jamela was there and brings you the following report.
South Africa finds itself requiring bold and decisive leadership that will not make everyone happy. That's according to Business Unity South Africa, or BUSA. BUSA is currently holding a business indaba or gathering in Sandton. Over 400 delegates at the BUSA indaba joined the gathering to highlight a range of critical steps needed to salvage and revive the country's economy. One of the critical issues is the crisis faced by Eskom. Eskom is a South African electricity public utility. The utility has been a bane of the economy and has caused distress for the business community by failing to ensure a stable supply of electricity in recent years.
What we need to do, government, business, and civil society, is create a single, long-term, comprehensive energy plan that is within the direct control of the presidency, which will unlock the potential of the private sector, of communities, and of households to generate and distribute the power they so urgently need.
This indaba takes place at a time when South Africa is grappling with low economic growth, high unemployment, and a power crisis. Small business enterprises were highlighted here as entities that cannot be ignored because of their contribution to the growth of the economy.
Between business and government, we can work together in supporting of SMEs in the industry. We could also work together in the sound implementation of policy and regulations, because members felt that sometimes it's not so much so about policy uncertainty, it's also about the lack of implementation and the proper implementation of existing policy.
The stagnant economy is putting a strain on all sectors, with retail and mining bleeding jobs.
President Cyril Ramaphosa acknowledged all the challenges that the country faces in terms of the urgent need for economic reforms, but he also cautioned that if the structural economic issues are not dealt with, South Africa will be on the same path for a long time to come.
And if we are going to build an inclusive economy, we therefore need to restructure our economy, because the current state of our economy is not well aligned with where we want to go. And the sooner we're able to settle down and begin to deal with that reality, the better.
The president committed here to hold monthly meetings with labor and business to continue to seek solutions. Ulysses Jamela for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
China's economic performance was closely watched as the China-U.S. trade war played out over the course of 2019. So how did China fare while contending with stiff tariffs and a variety of other geopolitical tensions last year? Wang Xin breaks down the figures for us. Let's take a look.
China reported 6.1% GDP growth in 2019. The rate was the slowest in decades, but China is now growing at a much bigger base. The country's GDP reached 99 trillion yuan this year. That was almost 3 times the amount from 10 years ago. The incremental GDP volume is actually much larger. China's economy hit a milestone in 2019 as GDP per capita exceeded $10,000 for the first time. Why does it matter? GDP per capita represents the output attributed to each individual person. It is a more useful metric for gauging a country's prosperity. Higher per capita GDP is usually associated with higher level of wages. So a rising GDP per capita usually means greater consumption power for the Chinese people. That is key to China's transformation to a consumption-led economy. However, it also raises concerns that China is nearing the so-called middle-income trap. Other key indicators include industrial production up by 5.7%. It gathered steam at the year-end, and the nearing China-U.S. trade deal improved business confidence. Fixed asset investment grew 5.4%, a slight improvement on the 5.2% growth reported in November. And that came at a government move to boost infrastructure spending to shore up the economy. Investment in the high-tech sector recorded 17.3% growth, underlying China's efforts for higher quality growth. Retail sales rose 8%, a key indicator of consumption. Retail held steady, but was down from 9% in 2018 amid the China-U.S. trade war.
Well, after signing their Phase 1 trade deal, Beijing and Washington are looking ahead. The world's two largest economies are already working toward Phase 2. CGTN's Sean Calebs has more on the achievements and global implications.
A stroke of a pen went a long way toward easing long, simmering trade tension between the world's two greatest economies. For Trump, a moment to boast. In a tweet saying, the farmers are really happy with the new trade deal. They are part of his political base and a group that will benefit by China's promise to buy some $200 billion worth of goods and services in the next 2 years. $32 billion of that will be soybeans and other agricultural products. That is welcome news for farmers hit hard by the tit-for-tat tariff war.
We look forward to selling more to Chinese customers who want it. They also have been challenged with extra taxes, the tariffs that have been placed on them by both sides, making them much more expensive.
U.S. energy and manufacturing sectors will also benefit. China is pleased U.S. President Trump is agreeing to halt tariffs on billions of dollars of Chinese goods. And at the same time, China will provide U.S. firms enhanced trade secret protection while operating in China.
It is imperative that both parties work together, uphold the principles of equality and mutual respect, strictly abide by the agreement.
The two sides are promising to establish procedures within WTO rules for resolving disputes. And that could be important moving forward. China is promising to further open its financial markets to U.S. entities. One thing is for sure, other nations are embracing this new pact, saying a dark cloud hovering over the global economy may be dissipating.
The signing of the Phase 1 economic trade agreement between China and the United States will start to reduce the uncertainties that have long seriously affected the world economy.
Make no mistake, there is still a long way to go. Phase 2 of the trade negotiations are set to start immediately, but may not be resolved until after the U.S. presidential election in November. Sean Caleb, CGTN, Washington.
An engineer in Nigeria's southeastern state of Anambra is now the talk of the town. He has developed, listen to this, a hydroelectric generator which turns waste into petroleum products. He is hoping he could commercialize his innovation and create employment opportunities for young Nigerians. CGTN's Brian Toussaint has that story.
An engineer by profession, Emeka Ugwueze set up his mini technology lab in Awka. His latest invention, a water-powered generator prototype, has been the talk of the town in recent months. Powered by high-voltage motorcycle batteries with no carbon emissions, it can last over 6 hours depending on the energy consumption rates.
I actually lost a friend to a generator which actually brought about this because I wanted to do something that can eliminate the use of gasoline generators in the society. So I'm actually an advocate of clean energy and waste management.
Trained in metallurgy at a technical college, he has set out to solve problems across the environmental, health, and industrial sectors. However, Emeka has to rely on donations to purchase the required components for his inventions.
I usually source my raw materials from waste bins. In fact, I go and get discarded electronic components. At some point, friends do a lot of donation. Like people, you see what I do, you just love what I create. They just, okay, take this, use it to get this at the end of the day. So as things grows on, they keep on happening that way, even from social media. People have not even known me tend to donate some money just to make sure that the dream doesn't die off.
Emeka has 12 innovations so far. He created this generator in 2001, and he has been progressively improving it. This particular invention has generated interest from across town due to the benefits that come with it.
People think that, even some actually tend to dispute that what I'm actually doing is not sustainable, or it doesn't work, or it's a lie, I'm trying to connote something. But at the end of the day, you end up seeing that it's actually real. I'm not saying that we arrived there yet. It still has its own flaws.
It is very, very excellent. I'm even begging him to, sell for me, but he said that is not possible now. I'm even waiting for any time that he has produced it on going to the market. That is must. I must even purchase like 5 for myself and my family.
Most businesses and homes in Nigeria are forced to run on diesel or petrol-powered generators. It is estimated that around 80 million people do not have access to grid power supplies. Emeka hopes his invention could play a role in expunging the difficulties faced in Africa's most populated country. Brian Toussaint, CGTN.
Remarkable story there. Well, the news continues on Africa Live. Here's what's coming up after the break. We explore why brides are turning away from white gowns in modern weddings.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Welcome back. For some women, the wedding gown is one of the most important dresses she'll ever wear in her life. Now, there's a lot of emotion that goes into it. Historically, brides wore white gowns with the color linked to purity. But in recent times, more women are abandoning the traditional white gown for something more colorful and unique. CGTN's Chao Mgono explores this trend through the eyes of one designer.
I think it's the one thing that most clearly represents the wedding day. It's the most dramatic piece, probably the single item that you spend so much money on. So it will, and you'll also get so many photos from that day of you in your wedding dress. So it's one of those things that would be a reminder. So it's really, really important that you get that dress right. But on top of that, it's also a representation of who you are. This is the one dress that you put so much time and effort and money into selecting. So it's important that you stay true to yourself, and it's a representation of who you are as a person, and I guess what you stand for. So this is a blush pink and gold wedding gown. The top part of it is sheer. You can actually see part of like her skin through some of the gaps here. So it's lace, which has been overlaid on a sheer fabric, and then there's some beadwork which has also been added. Then the bottom part is a more like solid blush color. At the bottom, it's been made with a very full tulle fabric as well. And then there's a satin underlayer. We found that brides are leaning towards different styles like this, which are something in between wedding gowns and evening gowns. The reason for that is, one, this is a dress you could probably just trim at the bottom and use again, so you get more use out of the money that you're spending. And then two, people are more interested in making gowns which are individual, which are personal, which represent them. If, for example, she's a more creative, more flamboyant bride, she might opt for a colored gown, not necessarily in white and not necessarily in blush, but there are so many other colors we are seeing coming into fashion right now. So colors like blue, champagne, gold, silver, of course blush. Yeah, and it's becoming a trend. Also, what we're finding is people are getting married older as well. So that whole tradition thing is not as strong anymore. It's no longer about trying to show people that how pure you are. And I think brides are also thinking that because I'm paying for my gown, I want to get the exact gown that I want. I don't really want to fall into a certain category or to be boxed in with the kind of gown that I'm wearing. So for that reason, we are seeing a lot more creative designs, a lot more out there colors for our wedding gowns. There's been a lot on the catwalks, a lot of celebrity weddings where people are not necessarily wearing white. On top of that, the older we are, the less apologetic we are about what we are doing. Older brides seem to have a clearer idea of what they want, and they also don't take too much advice from different people. Like, they're very clear, they have good money to spend as well, so they're getting the dress that they love.
And that's it. Ciao Muhono, CGTN.
Well, in spite of a lower and upper limbs disability, a young Guinean is beating the odds by fighting to be independent. We meet Issa Sai in the capital, Conakry, to discover how she does it all.
Issa Sai lives in this slum of Conakry. Disabled from birth, she lives with her husband and has her own household chores. Making her husband happy is her daily dose of motivation.
When I get up in the morning, I sweep the yard, clean and wash my dishes. Because of my disability, my husband is the one who goes to the market. When he comes back, I automatically start cooking. I have to start very early so that my husband eats lunch because I cannot work quickly like non-disabled people.
Issa holds a degree in pharmacy and is the proud mother of a little girl. Despite her courage, she still faces the difficulties of moving every day, and her challenges have increased since the birth of a child.
My ambition is to have a car. I used to ride alone on a motorcycle. Now with a baby, I can't. I ask NGOs to help me just to make it easier for me to take care of my baby. I can't put my baby on my back and go too far. It's not going to tire me, but rather the child. I can't take her and stop at the taxi stop. So I ask people of goodwill to help me, not for me, but mainly for my daughter. Right now my child is sick, but it is my husband who takes her to the hospital. I have to stay at home.
Working steadily to beat the odds, Issa Sai has earned the respect and admiration of her family.
Until she reached a certain age, we did everything for her. One day, when she started crawling, we realized she could eat on her own. She dipped her stumps into the food and picked up bits, and then put them in her mouth. Her father was surprised to see her do it on her own. From then, we understood she could be independent.
I first saw her on TV and I got in touch with her. And then by the grace of God, we got married. My parents had no problem with our union, but my friends and some of her family members did discourage me. But I never listened to people. Her courage really attracted me to her.
Even with her degree, Issa is still struggling to find a job. Her ultimate goal remains to settle in a career that will allow her to take care of her family. Daniela Pearson, CGTN.
And we're not done just yet. We've got your sports news coming up after the break. Here's a sneak peek at the headlines. Tunisia Tennis Federation targets further growth of the sport in coming years.
How would you create your legend? On the fields, on the tracks, in the arenas of Africa. Were you born to be a player? Could this moment be yours? Sports Scene. Find your game.
Welcome back. The Tunisian